My friend Drew and I used to pass an abandoned house after work when we were 19. We both worked closing shifts at a grocery store, and we were always bored, always tired, always looking for something to make the night feel less dead. One Friday, after we got off around midnight, Drew pulled into the gravel shoulder near the house and said, "Let's just look inside." I laughed because I thought he was kidding. He turned the car off. That house had been empty for years. People said an older man lived there alone and died inside. Then his kids fought over the property until it fell apart. I never knew if that was true, but the place had that stale, abandoned look, like it had been left in the middle of a normal day and then forgotten. We walked up the driveway using the lights from our phones. The garage door hung crooked, and the front porch dipped under our weight. There was a smell before we even reached the door, a mix of damp wood, old carpet, and something sour underneath. The front door was locked, but a side window near the kitchen had been pushed inward. Drew went first. I followed, careful with the broken glass along the sill. Inside, the house felt warmer than outside. That was the first thing I noticed. It was a cool night, but the kitchen had this heavy air sitting in it. The counters were covered in dust, except for a long, clean streak across one section near the sink. Drew saw it too. "Probably raccoons," he said. There were dishes still in the cabinets. A calendar from 2009 hung on the wall, curled at the bottom. Someone had drawn a circle around a date in October, but the ink had faded too much to read. The fridge was gone, leaving a dark rectangle on the floor where it used to sit. We moved into the living room. The carpet had dark stains everywhere, and the ceiling sagged in one corner. A couch sat against the wall with a blanket folded neatly on one arm. That bothered me more than the broken windows. Everything else looked ruined by time. That blanket looked placed there. Drew walked over and touched it with 2 fingers. "Still soft," he said, smiling like he wanted to scare me. I told him to leave it alone. Past the living room was a hallway with 3 doors. 1 bathroom, 1 bedroom, and 1 room at the end with the door shut. The bathroom mirror had a crack down the middle. The medicine cabinet was empty except for a single toothbrush, bristles bent flat. In the bedroom, the mattress was bare and stained, with clothes piled in one corner. Men's shirts, work pants, a pair of boots sitting side by side at the foot of the bed. The boots faced the doorway. That made me feel watched in a way I still have trouble explaining. Drew kept going toward the last door. I stayed a few steps behind him. The door at the end of the hall had a hook latch on the outside, like someone had wanted to keep whatever was inside from getting out. Drew lifted it slowly. The metal gave a small scrape, loud in the quiet house. The room behind it was almost empty. Almost. There was a wooden chair in the center, turned toward the corner. A pile of old newspapers sat beside it. The walls were covered in strips of masking tape, all at different heights, like someone had been measuring something over and over. Near the closet, the wallpaper had been peeled away in long strips. Drew said, "This is messed up." Then we heard movement upstairs, a slow shift of weight. Both of us froze. I looked at Drew. He looked at me. His face had changed. He had that blank, alert look people get when fear catches up before words do. The house had no second floor from the outside. It looked like a single-story ranch. Then I remembered the attic. The hallway ceiling had a square pull-down panel, the kind with a cord hanging from it. The cord was swaying. I stared at it while my chest tightened. Drew whispered, "Did you pull that?" I shook my head. A soft drag came from above us, wood against wood. Then another slow drag, moving across the ceiling over the hallway. Drew backed into me. "Go," he said. We hurried through the hallway and into the living room. As we passed the couch, my phone light caught the blanket again. It had shifted. Now it was unfolded across the cushions, spread out flat like someone had just stood up from under it. I almost ran straight into Drew when he stopped in the kitchen. The window we came through had a board leaned across it from the inside. Drew cursed under his breath and shoved it away. It hit the floor with a crack that echoed through the house. From above us the dragging stopped. Then something moved fast across the attic. Heavy. Human. Heavy. We scrambled through the window, tearing our shirts on the broken frame. Drew cut his arm and left blood on the sill. Neither of us cared. We ran down the driveway and got into his car so fast he dropped the keys between the seat and console twice before he found them. As he started the engine, the front porch light turned on, a weak yellow bulb above the door. We sat there, breathing hard, staring. The house had no power. Everyone in town knew that. The line from the road had been cut years earlier after kids kept sneaking in. The front door opened inward about 6 inches. Drew threw the car in reverse and backed into the ditch before getting us onto the road. We never told anyone that night. It sounded too stupid. 2 grown guys sneaking into an abandoned house and scaring themselves half to death. The next morning, Drew called me and said he drove by after sunrise. The porch light was off. The front door was shut. The board was back across the kitchen window. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. His blood was gone from the sill. A week later, he went back with his older brother during the day. I refused to go. They found the kitchen window sealed from inside with fresh screws. The back door had a newer padlock on it. In the dirt near the porch there were footprints, bare feet, adult-sized. Drew sent me one picture before deleting it. I can still see it clearly. The prints came from the woods, crossed the driveway, went up onto the porch, and stopped at the front door. There were no prints leading away. A few months after that, the town finally boarded the place up properly. Then someone bought the land and had the house torn down. I still wonder what or who was staring back at us when that door opened. A few years back, my cousin Evan died in a house most people in town had forgotten about. He was 26, worked drywall jobs when he could get them, and had been staying there because he didn't want to move back in with his mom. The house belonged to a guy he knew from work, or at least that was what he told everybody. It sat at the end of a dead road behind a strip of woods, one of those old places with sagging gutters, plastic over the broken upstairs windows, and a mailbox so rusted the numbers had fallen off. When Evan stopped answering texts, nobody panicked at first. He did that sometimes. Then his boss called my aunt and said Evan had missed 3 days, which he never did because he needed the money. Police went out there and found him in the living room. Heart issue, they said. Maybe drugs, maybe dehydration, Maybe a mix of things. The official wording felt clean and useless. A week after the funeral, my aunt asked me to go with her to pick up his things. She said she couldn't do it alone. I didn't want to go, but I said yes because there are things you do for family even when your stomach tells you to stay home. We drove there on a hot afternoon. The road was half gravel, half dirt, with weeds brushing the sides of my truck. My aunt held a cardboard box on her lap the whole way, like she expected to fill it with neat memories, photos, clothes, maybe a watch, something that made sense. The house looked worse in person than it had in my head. The porch leaned down on one side. A blue tarp covered part of the roof, pinned with bricks. There were flies all over the front window, gathering in the corners inside the glass. My aunt stayed in the truck for a minute after I parked. "I'll just need a second," she said. I took the key from the officer's envelope. It had a little paper tag tied to it with string. The lock stuck so badly I had to put my shoulder into the door. When it opened, the smell came out first. It wasn't like in movies. It didn't hit like a wall. It spread slow, thick and sour, mixed with old trash, hot carpet, mildew, and something underneath that made my throat close. My aunt covered her mouth and turned away. I told her to wait outside. Inside, the living room was dim because the blinds were bent shut. There was a couch with one cushion missing, a coffee table covered in fast food bags, water bottles, cigarette ash, and unpaid bills. A box fan stood in the corner, unplugged. The carpet had a dark stain in front of the couch where they had found him. I tried not to look at it too long. His work boots were by the door. His hoodie was on the arm of the couch. A phone charger ran across the floor, plugged into a power strip with burn marks around one socket. It was all too normal. That was the worst part. A half-empty soda. A receipt from the gas station. One sock under the table. Signs of somebody planning to wake up the next day and deal with everything later. I found his backpack in the kitchen. There were roaches in the sink and a pan on the stove with something dried black in it. The fridge was still on, but I didn't open it. I heard it buzzing and clicking, struggling like it was tired. In the backpack, I found his wallet, a change of shirt, 2 lighters, a pack of ibuprofen, and a folded paper from a clinic with an appointment date circled. The appointment had been 3 days after he died. I brought the backpack outside. My aunt saw it and started crying without making much noise. She sat on the porch step and held it against her chest. "Can you check the bedroom?" she asked. I went back in. The stairs felt soft under my feet. Halfway up, there was a smell of mouse droppings and damp wood. Evan's room was at the end of the hall. The door was open. There was a mattress on the floor with no sheet, just a blanket twisted at the bottom. A pile of clothes sat in the corner. A small TV faced the bed, balanced on a milk crate. The wall above the mattress had little nail holes where something used to hang. I started putting clothes into a trash bag. Most of them smelled like sweat and old smoke. I checked the pockets because my aunt had asked me to save anything personal. In one pair of jeans, I found a crumpled note from my aunt. It was old, probably from months earlier. Just a grocery list on the back of an envelope, but she had written, "Love you," at the bottom. He had kept it? That made me sit down on the edge of the mattress. That was when I noticed the closet. The door was shut with a belt looped around the knob and tied to a pipe that ran along the wall. It wasn't done like someone trying to lock something valuable away. It looked desperate and quick. I stood there for a while, listening to the house settle. Outside, I could hear my aunt crying softly. I almost left it. Then I thought about Evan sleeping beside that closet every night and tying it shut before bed. I untied the belt. The closet door opened about 6 inches, then stopped. Something heavy blocked it from inside. I pushed harder. A pile of clothes slid across the floor. The smell inside was sharp and stale, like urine and heat. There were scratches on the inside of the door, not from an animal. They were too high. Some were deep enough to peel the old paint back in strips. Near the bottom, someone had dug into the wood around the door frame until their nails must have split. I stepped back. At first I thought maybe the police had missed something. Then my eyes adjusted to the dark, and I saw what was on the floor. A sleeping bag, empty food wrappers, a plastic jug half full of yellow liquid, a child's backpack with faded cartoon characters on it. My whole body went cold. I called the officer whose card my aunt had given me. I remember my voice sounding calm, like I was reporting a flat tire. He told me to leave the house and wait outside. My aunt kept asking what happened. I told her I found something and that the police were coming back. She tried to go inside, and I had to stand in front of the door. 2 officers came, then 2 more. They taped off the porch. One of them asked how long Evan had been living there. Another asked if he had ever mentioned anyone staying with him. My aunt said no, over and over, until she sounded like she was trying to convince herself. They searched the rest of the house. Behind a stack of boxes in the basement, they found a second mattress, small, stained. Beside it were empty cans, a flashlight, and strips of duct tape stuck to the concrete wall. Nobody told us much after that. Weeks later, a detective came to my aunt's apartment. I was there because she didn't like being alone anymore. He said they believed someone else had been in the house before Evan died, possibly a runaway, possibly someone being kept there. They didn't have a body. They didn't have a name. They had DNA from the closet, but no match yet. Then he asked if Evan had enemies. My aunt just stared at him. I still don't know what Evan knew. I don't know if he was scared of someone, helping someone, or hiding something ugly. I don't know if he tied that closet from the outside to keep somebody in, or tied it because something had happened in that room and he couldn't sleep unless it stayed shut. What I do know is that somebody was in that closet long enough to scratch through paint.